You know the story. It seems to happen on a loop. Businesses collapse, millions of people lose their jobs, and the markets just panic. It feels like pure chaos, right? Random, unpredictable. But what if it's not? What if these huge economic crashes, these recessions, actually follow a pretty predictable pattern? It's a stark reality when you think about it. Roughly once every generation, the massive engine of the global economy just sputters and stalls out. And listen, this is not some new phenomenon. It's a cycle that's been repeating throughout history. So to really understand why it keeps happening, we've got to pop the hood and see what's going on inside. All right, so let's dive right in. What is the actual mechanism that triggers these massive economic downturns? That's the central mystery we are going to unravel right now. Now, to find our first clue, we actually have to go back in time, a long way back. Because you see, this cycle isn't just a modern problem of stocks and super complex finance. Nope, this is a fundamental issue, one that even the most ancient civilizations had to face. Think about this. For thousands of years, bronze was everything. I mean, it was used for tools, jewelry, even as a form of currency. And then, almost overnight, its value just plummeted. This caused widespread chaos and what we totally recognize today as a full-blown recession. A crucial takeaway here: economic crises are nothing new. Okay, so let's get to the core mechanics. Because to understand what breaks an economy, we first have to understand how it's supposed to work in the first place. And at its very heart, it is all about a really, really delicate balance. So in the simplest terms, a recession is just a major, sustained mismatch between the stuff that's being produced and the stuff that people are willing or even able to buy. When that balance gets broken and stays broken for too long, the whole system just starts to grind to a halt. A key sign of this economic balance is something you've definitely heard a lot about: inflation. The easiest way to think of it is just the rate at which your money loses its purchasing power. Now, a little bit of inflation is actually seen as healthy. It encourages people to spend, but when it gets too high, it becomes a massive problem, a kind of silent trigger for a downturn. And the main tool used to control that balance? Interest rates. Think of them as the economy's gas pedal and its brake. When rates are low, money is cheap to borrow, so businesses expand and people spend. It's like flooring the gas, the economy speeds up. But when rates go high, borrowing gets expensive and everyone hits the brakes. Okay, so we've got the basic mechanics down, but what actually kicks off the imbalance in the first place? Well, the triggers, the culprits, if you will, can come from some very different and sometimes pretty surprising places. The most obvious culprits are what we call sudden external shocks. We're talking about a major earthquake that wipes out factories, or a war that disrupts trade routes and causes energy prices to just spike through the roof. These kinds of events violently break the supply chain, causing prices to soar and demand to basically collapse. But here's an interesting twist for you. A recession doesn't always come from a disaster. Sometimes, believe it or not, it comes from the party just getting a little too wild. You see, during periods of prosperity, confidence is sky high. Companies and people borrow huge amounts of money, all assuming the good times are going to last forever. But what happens if that explosive growth doesn't continue the way everyone expected? All of a sudden, that debt that seemed so easy to manage becomes this absolutely overwhelming burden. And to pay it off, businesses have to cut costs and slash investments. Consumers have to stop spending. The boom itself actually created the perfect conditions for the bust. And here's another potential culprit: the cure. To fight off a recession, governments will often inject money into the economy and slash interest rates. But those support systems, they can't last forever. When they're eventually pulled back to get inflation under control, an economy that has gotten used to all that cheap money can go into a state of shock. This brings us to what is maybe the most powerful and certainly the most unpredictable factor of all: human psychology. You see, economics isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about how people feel about the future. It's so powerful because if enough people believe a recession is coming, they completely change their behavior. They stop spending money, they start saving everything they can, and they pull back on investments. And just by doing that, fear alone can create the very outcome that people were so afraid of in the first place. And this kicks off a really dangerous downward spiral. You can just see the domino effect. Fear leads to less spending, okay? Less spending then forces companies to cut costs, which often means laying off workers. Well, that leads to lower incomes and higher unemployment, which of course means even less demand for goods and services, which only reinforces that initial fear. The prophecy fulfills itself. So are we just doomed to repeat this cycle forever? Let's go back to history one more time to find the final piece of this puzzle. And I promise it's not all doom and gloom. Remember that Bronze Age collapse we talked about? It was a total disaster at the time, but it didn't last. The crisis actually forced a change. It pushed people to adopt a new technology, iron tools, which completely revolutionized farming and productivity, creating a whole new kind of economy. So out of crisis came innovation. Of course, our modern global economy, with its interconnected markets and instant communication, is infinitely more complex than Bronze Age Britain was. There's no question that predicting and navigating these downturns has become incredibly difficult. But that fundamental pattern still holds. While they are incredibly painful, every recession is also a kind of stress test on the system. It reveals weaknesses and provides a massive amount of new data, helping economists and policymakers understand the triggers and responses better than ever before. Just think about it. The 2008 crisis directly helped accelerate the rise of fintech as a response to the clear failings in traditional banking. Which leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? We understand the patterns of debt, psychology, and policy. We collect more data than at any other time in human history. So can we finally learn enough from the past to break the cycle? Or is this recurring crash simply a fundamental, unavoidable part of how our economies work?